Hello Year A, this is your lesson 2, chapter 2 of Animal Farm. So start by opening up your books, whether it be exercise books or notebooks, and put the title. We're on Animal Farm chapter 2, and I've put the date as Wednesday the 25th of March, but obviously put whatever date it is on the day that you are accessing this video. Remember, you can pause me at any point if you want to catch up with notes. Before you start, make sure that you format your book again, exactly the same as in the previous video. So you've got a bit of a table with your vocab, your characters, and what's happening, and the key quotes here. Okay, so pause now if you need some time to do that. I'm going to get straight on with reading chapter 2. So turn to page 10, chapter 2. 3 nights later, old Major died peacefully in his sleep. His body was buried at the foot of the orchard. This was early in March. During the next 3 months, there was much secret activity. Major's speech had given to the more intelligent animals on the farm a completely new outlook on life. They did not know when the rebellion predicted by Major would take place. They had no reason for thinking that it would be within their own lifetime, but they saw clearly that it was their duty to prepare for it. Okay, so first bit of vocabulary there is duty. Duty. So a duty is a moral or legal responsibility. So moral, doing what is moral is doing what is the right thing. So it's probably more a moral responsibility that the animals felt that they had to make sure that this rebellion eventually took place. And we also have here the first major event. Old Major dies. Okay. The work of teaching and organising the others fell naturally upon the pigs, who were generally recognised as being the cleverest of the animals. Preeminent among the pigs were 2 young boars named Snowball and Napoleon, who Mr. Jones was breeding for sale. So preeminent means they were the greatest of all the pigs. Napoleon was a large, rather fierce-looking Berkshire boar, the only Berkshire on the farm. Not much of a talker, but with a reputation for getting his own way. Snowball was a more vivacious pig than Napoleon, quicker in speech and more inventive, but was not considered to have the same depth of character. So a vivacious pig, that's a livelier pig. All the other male pigs on the farm were porkers. The best known among them was a small fat pig named Squealer, with very round cheeks, twinkling eyes, nimble movements and a shrill voice. He was a brilliant talker. And when he was arguing some difficult point, he had a way of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail, which was somehow very persuasive. The other said of Squealer that he could turn black into white. Okay, so here we've met another 3 key characters. We've got Snowball. So Snowball is a pig, he's a boar, and is inventive, quick thinking, and speaking, but he is shallow. And then you've got Napoleon, a large, fierce boar, but not much of a talker, but very used to getting his own way. And Squealer, that is an A after the E. A small, fat pig, a brilliant and persuasive talker. We've got this trio of very powerful pigs. These 3 had elaborated on old Major's teachings into a complete system of thought to which they gave the name of animalism. Several nights a week after Mr. Jones was asleep, they held secret meetings in the barn and expounded the principles of animalism to the others. So they explained the principles of animalism. So the principles would have been sort of the beliefs around the idea of animalism. Animalism is going to become almost like a religion to them, but it's almost more of like a political thing than a religion. But it's going to be a system that they will follow quite rigorously. At the beginning, they were met with much stupidity and apathy. So apathy is complete lack of interest. Some of the animals talked of the duty and loyalty to Mr. Jones, who they referred to as Master, or made elementary remarks such as, "Mr. Jones feeds us. If he were gone, we should starve to death." Others asked questions such as, "Why should we care what happens after we are dead?" Or, "If this rebellion is to happen anyway, what difference would it make whether we work for it or not?" And the pigs had great difficulty in making them see that this was contrary to the spirit of animalism. The stupidest questions of all were asked by Molly, the white mare. The very first question she asked Snowball was, "Will there be sugar after the rebellion?" "No," said Snowball firmly. "We have no means of making sugar on this farm. Besides, you do not need sugar. You will have all the oats and hay you want." "And shall I be allowed to wear ribbons in my mane?" asked Molly. "Comrade," said Snowball, "those ribbons that you are so devoted to are the badge of slavery. Can you not understand that your liberty is worth more than ribbons?" Okay, those ribbons she's so devoted to, so loyal to, are the badge of slavery. So can you not understand that your liberty or your freedom is worth more than ribbons? Molly agreed, but she didn't sound very convinced. The pigs had an even harder struggle to counteract the lies put about by Moses, the tame raven. Moses, who was Mr. Jones's especial pet, was a spy and a talebearer, but he was also a clever talker. He claimed to know of the existence of a mysterious country called Sugar Candy Mountain, to which all the animals went when they died. It was situated somewhere up in the sky, a little distance beyond the clouds, Moses said. In Sugar Candy Mountain, it was Sunday 7 days a week. Clover was in season all year round, and lump sugar and linseed cake grew on the hedges. The animals hated Moses because he told tales and did no work. But some of them believed in Sugar Candy Mountain, and the pigs had to argue very hard to persuade them that there was no such place. Okay, so got here another key moment. The pigs, who were generally recognised as being the cleverest, shared the principles of animalism with the others. So actually what we've got straight away are some animals emerging as the leaders. So you want to think about whether that's in line with the vision that Old Major had. And then here, many animals had to be convinced that rebellion was the right thing to do, especially after Moses started to spread lies about Sugar Candy Mountain. Okay, so another two key moments to jot down in your notes. Their most faithful disciples, so disciples, followers, were the two cart horses, Boxer and Clover. These two had great difficulty in thinking anything out for themselves, but having once accepted the pigs as their teachers, they absorbed everything they were told and passed it on to the other animals by simple arguments. They were unfailing in their determination. They were unfailing in their attendance at the secret meetings in the barn and led the singing of Beasts of England, with which the meetings now always ended. Now, as it turned out, the rebellion was achieved much earlier and much more easily than anyone had expected. In past years, Mr. Jones, although a hard master, had been a capable farmer, but of late had fallen on evil days. He had become much disheartened after losing money in a lawsuit and had taken to drinking much more than was good for him. For whole days at a time, he would lounge in his Windsor chair in the kitchen, reading a newspaper, drinking, and occasionally feeding Moses on crusts of bread soaked in beer. His men were idle, so they were lazy and dishonest, and the fields were full of weeds. The buildings wanted roofing, the hedges were neglected, and the animals were underfed. June came and the hay was almost ready for cutting. On Midsummer's Eve, which was a Saturday, Mr. Jones went into Willington and got so drunk at the Red Lion that he did not come back till midday on Sunday. The men had milked the cows early in the morning and then had gone out rabbiting without bothering to feed the animals. When Mr. Jones got back, he immediately went to sleep in the drawing room sofa with the news of the world over his face, so that when evening came, the animals were still unfed. At last, they could stand it no longer. One of the cows broke in the door of the store shed with her horn, and all the animals began to help themselves from the bins. It was just then that Mr. Jones woke up. The next moment, he and his 4 men were in the store shed with whips in their hands, lashing out in all directions. This was more than the hungry animals could bear. With one accord, though nothing of the kind that had been planned beforehand, they flung themselves upon their tormentors. Jones and his men suddenly found themselves head-butted and kicked from all sides. The situation was quite out of their control. They'd never seen animals behave like this before, and this sudden uprising of creatures, whom they were used to thrashing and maltreating just as they chose, frightened them almost out of their wits. After only a moment or two, they gave up trying to defend themselves and took to their heels. A minute later, all 5 of them were in full flight down the cart track that led to the main road, with the animals pursuing them in triumph. Mrs. Jones looked out of the bedroom window, saw what was happening, hurriedly flung a few possessions into a carpet bag, and slipped out of the farm another way. Moses sprang off his perch and flapped after her, croaking loudly. Meanwhile, the animals had chased Jones and his men out onto the road and slammed the 5-bar gate behind them. And so, almost before they knew what was happening, the rebellion had been successfully carried through. Jones was expelled, he was made to leave, and the manor farm was theirs. For the first few minutes, the animals could hardly believe in their good fortune. Their first act was to gallop in a body right round the boundaries of the farm, as though to make quite sure that no human being was hiding anywhere upon it. Then they raced back to the farm building to wipe out the last traces of Jones's hated reign, so his reign, his leadership. The harness room at the end of the stables was broken open. The bits, the nose rings, the dog chains, the cruel knives with which Mr. Jones had used to castrate the pigs and lambs, were all flung down the well. The reins, the halters, the blinkers, the degrading nose bags were thrown into the rubbish fire, which was burning in the yard. So were the whips. All the animals capered with joy when they saw the whips going up in flames. Snowball also threw into the fire the ribbons with which the horses' manes and tails had usually been decorated on market days. Ribbons, he said, should be considered as clothes, which are the mark of human beings. All animals should go naked. When Boxer heard this, he fetched the small straw hat which he wore in summer to keep the flies off of his ears, and flung it into the fire with the rest. Hey, what kind of a decision do you think that was? Do you think that's a good decision? Or do you think that's ultimately harming him? In a very little while, the animals had destroyed everything that reminded them of Mr. Jones. Napoleon had led them back to the store shed and served out a double ration of corn to everybody, with 2 biscuits for each dog. Then they sang Beasts of England from end to end 7 times running. And after that settled down for a night and slept as they had never slept before. Okay, a couple more things to add then to our list of events. So, one day, Jones gets drunk and his farmhands go hunting rabbits. They all forget to feed the animals, so the cows break into the feed shed. And then the men come back and try to whip the animals, but the animals turn on them. Before they know it, the revolution has happened. And then finally, the animals survey their farm and destroy anything that the humans used to control them. Okay, so again, pause the video if you need to get those notes down. Then I carry on. But they woke at dawn as usual, and suddenly remembering the glorious thing that had happened, they all raced out into the pasture together. A little way down the pasture, there was a knoll. A knoll is a small hill that commanded a view of most of the farm. The animals rushed to the top of it and gazed round them in the clear morning light. Yes, it was theirs. Everything that they could see was theirs. In the ecstasy of that thought, they gambolled round and round. They hurled themselves in the air in great leaps of excitement. So if you gambol, you're sort of jumping and running around playfully. They rolled in the dew. They cropped mouthfuls of the sweet summer grass. They kicked up clods of the black earth and snuffed its rich scent. Then they made a tour of inspection of the whole farm and surveyed with speechless admiration the ploughland, the hayfield, the orchard, the pool, the spinney. It was as though they'd never seen these things before, and even now they could hardly believe that it was all their own. Then they filed back to the farm buildings and halted in silence outside the door of the farmhouse. That was theirs too. They were frightened to go inside. After a moment, however, Snowball and Napoleon butted the door open with their shoulders, and the animals entered in single file, walking with the utmost care for the fear of disrupting anything. They tiptoed from room to room, afraid to speak above a whisper, and gazing with a kind of awe at the unbelievable luxury, at the beds with their feather mattresses, the looking glasses, the horsehair sofa, the Brussels carpet, the lithograph of Queen Victoria over the drawing room mantelpiece. A lithograph is just like a picture, a printed picture. They were just coming down the stairs when Molly was discovered to be missing. Going back, the others found that she had remained behind in the best bedroom. She had taken a piece of blue ribbon from Mrs. Jones's dressing table and was holding it against her shoulder and admiring herself in the glass in a very foolish manner. The others reproached her sharply, and they went outside, so they showed her great disapproval. Some hams hanging in the kitchen were taken out for burial, and the barrel of beer in the scullery was stove in with a kick from Boxer's hoof. Otherwise, nothing in the house was touched. A unanimous resolution was passed on the spot that the farmhouse should be preserved as a museum. All agreed that no animal must ever live there. So unanimous is full agreement, and a resolution is like a promise or a firm decision. So they've decided together that no animal will ever be allowed to live in the farmhouse. The animals had their breakfast, and then Snowball and Napoleon called them together again. "Comrades," said Snowball, "it is 6:30, and we have a long day before us. Today we begin the hay harvest, but there is another matter that must be attended to first." The pigs now revealed that during the past 3 months they had taught themselves to read and write from an old spelling book which had belonged to Mr. Jones's children and which had been thrown onto the rubbish heap. Napoleon sent for four pots of black and white paint and led the way down to the 5-barred gate that gave on the main road. Then Snowball, for it was Snowball who was best at writing, took a brush between the 2 knuckles of his trotter, painted out Manor Farm from the top bar of the gate, and in its place painted Animal Farm. This was to be the name of the farm from now on. Note maybe who has made that decision. After this, they went back to the farm buildings, where Snowball and Napoleon sent for a ladder, which they caused to be set against the end wall of the big barn. They explained that by their studies of the past 3 months, the pigs had succeeded in reducing the principles of animalism to 7 commandments. So what I want you to think about is, whether this sounds like equality, who seems to be in control? If someone is in control, is there ever equality? Okay, just a few things for you to be thinking about there. These 7 commandments would now be inscribed on the wall, so they'd be written on the wall. They'd form an unalterable law by which all the animals on Animal Farm must live ever after. With some difficulty, for it is not easy for a pig to balance himself on a ladder, Snowball climbed up and set to work, with Squealer a few rungs below him holding the paint pot. The commandments were written on the tarred wall in great white letters that could be read 30 yards away. They ran thus: The 7 commandments. 1. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. 2. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. 3. No animal shall wear clothes. 4. No animal shall sleep in a bed. 5. No animal shall drink alcohol. 6. No animal shall kill any other animal. 7. All animals are equal. It was written very neatly, and except that friend was written friend and one of the S's was the wrong way round, the spelling was correct all the way through. Snowball read it aloud for the benefit of the others. All the animals nodded in complete agreement, and the cleverer ones at once began to learn the commandments by heart. "Now, comrades," cried Snowball, throwing down the paintbrush, "to the hayfield! Let us make it a point of honour to get the harvest more quickly than Jones and his men could do." But at this moment, the 3 cows, who had seemed uneasy for some time past, set up a loud lowing. They had not been milked for 24 hours, and their udders were almost bursting. After a little thought, the pigs sent for buckets and milked the cows fairly successfully, their trotters being well adapted to this task. Soon there were 5 buckets of frothing, creamy milk, at which many of the animals looked with considerable interest. "Well, what's going to happen to all that milk?" said someone. "Jones used to mix some of it in with our mash," said one of the hens. "Never mind the milk, comrades," cried Napoleon, placing himself in front of the buckets. "That will be attended to. The harvest is more important. Comrade Snowball will lead the way. I shall follow in a few minutes. Forward, comrades, the hay is waiting." So the animals trooped down to the hayfield to begin the harvest. And when they came back in the evening, it was noticed that the milk had disappeared. So that final question, where do you think the milk has gone? Okay, have a little think. So final notes on this chapter. Sorry, dropped my phone. So last couple of notes. So the next day, the farm is christened Animal Farm, and the 7 commandments are written on the barn wall. And the pigs milk the cows, and then the milk disappears. Okay, very mysterious. So again, pause the video if you need to get those notes down. And then a couple or so keywords I want you to put down in your vocabulary to try and learn from the chapter. So we've got liberty. Liberty means freedom. Idle. Idle means lazy. And a resolution. A resolution is a strong decision. Okay? So add those 3 words to your vocabulary list for this chapter. The next task for everybody to do is the Chapter 2 quiz, which you should have in your working from home booklet that you were given. Or if you didn't get the booklet, I have attached it on ePraise for you. And I have also attached the answers, so you can green pen once you are finished. And following that, I will put another couple of videos up that you could have a little look at to match this chapter, as well as obviously the option to continue making some flashcards. Okay, I'll upload another video for you for tomorrow's lesson. Bye!